This is the EcoFlow Alternator Charger, and this is why we like it. Why we like it is a channel about stuff we like. Hey, if you don't like it, that's okay, move along. But if you like it, subscribe. This is our camper. It's a 2022 Land Rover Defender 110, and we can take it completely off grid thanks to our EcoFlow products. This is the Delta 2 Max. We also use the Delta 2 Max additional battery. We first found EcoFlow when we were looking for a heater AC unit for our tent. And that's how we found the Wave 2. Then we learned that with the use of great power comes great responsibility in managing electricity. So we looked into the EcoFlow power stations to power our Wave 2, our fridge, lights around camp, and do things like charge phones and computers, etc. Power management is important. Before leaving for camp, you charge up your Delta 2 Max, charge up the extra battery, grab the solar panels, hope that it's a sunny spot wherever you're parked for camping, and if you run out of power, you have a little bit of juice that can come off your 12-volt cigarette lighter. That's not ideal, but today EcoFlow has fixed that. Check this out. The EcoFlow Alternator Charger, and it turns your car engine into a generator that recharges your batteries. Let's unbox this thing, install it, and see what it can do. Let's look at everything in the box. We start with our fuse. This is going to connect directly to your battery, and then from your battery it'll connect over to the input cable, which is a 5-meter cable that connects to your positive and your negative, and then connects to your alternator charger. Next is the XT150 output cable that's 1 meter long and connects from the alternator charger directly to the EcoFlow power station. A mounting plate, I'll show you this at the end. The cable puller that disconnects the input cable or the output cable from the alternator charger, some extra parts, and of course the alternator charger itself. This is really heavy. And probably one of the most important things right now, the installation quick start manual. How do we hook this thing up? What do we have to do? Let's jump over to the car, let's strip everything out of it, and let's get this thing plugged up. Now before you start doing any installations or wiring in your vehicle, definitely talk to professionals. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, just stop, let someone else do it. Bring it by my house, I'll do it for you. I needed to find where the battery was, and in the Land Rover, the battery is under the passenger seat. Before I started the install, I did talk to some friends of mine who are techs at Land Rover. To make sure I was doing it properly, I went ahead and watched videos online, and I also read through that quick start manual. You're going to want to do that. Any good install starts with prep, so let's pull out that fridge. Let's get back there and remove our mount for our fridge slide. We're going to remove our false floor and anything else that might block our wiring path. Wow, there's a lot of Land Rover gadgetry back here I don't want to mess with. Let's check out the battery. Now under the passenger seat is our battery. You can see the positive terminal and the negative terminal. After carefully removing the trim panels on the back passenger side, it reveals the conduit line where the Land Rover wiring loom goes through. This is where I want to run my EcoFlow input cable from the back of the vehicle to the battery area. I'm not going to bore you with how long this took, but because it was challenging to see down inside the battery cavity, I actually used my cell phone as a monitor, and then I made a metal hook so I could grab the cables and pull them out easily. Now here's a little pro tip for you. On your input cable, take some electrical tape, wrap it around, connecting the red positive line directly to the black line. This is going to help as you run your cable through your car's conduit to make sure that everything stays together and nothing gets hung up. While discussing the install with the techs at Land Rover, they pointed out a chassis mounted cable that goes directly to the negative bus attached to the battery. This is where we're going to install the input cable's ground. I used an 8mm socket to remove the terminal nut, and I hold the original terminal wires in place as I add my EcoFlow negative terminal. By sliding the electric seat back, it reveals the positive terminal. Now I can go ahead and wire up my fuse line. Now I'm going to take the fuse cover off, being very careful because I am close to a negative ground here. I'm going to remove the nut from the fuse, and I'm going to connect it to the positive side of the input cable. Then I'm going to put it back together, starting with the washer, then the lock washer, and then the nut. Now pop the cover back on, make sure everything is nice and tight, and we're going to tuck all our wires down in, almost like they're factory. In the back of the vehicle, I want to find a clear path where I can run the EcoFlow input cable from the passenger side of the vehicle to the driver's side, because on the driver's side, that's where I normally have my Delta 2 Max located. So I'm going to use some zip ties, and I'm going to connect the wiring directly to this structure bar, keeping it away from any of the Land Rover parts or anything that I think it might get hung up on. Take your time, make sure everything fits the way you want it, and then use something like zip ties to hold everything in place. Now I'll tell you, this was a simple install, but it took time. So if you're going to do this yourself, make sure you plan ahead. Be very careful when you're working around any type of factory parts or wiring, especially those that are tucked out of sight, because the last thing you want to do is damage something and have to take it to a dealer to fix it. During the install, I spent some time thinking about mounting. I wanted somewhere where the unit could have good airflow, could be tucked away and be inconspicuous, but easy to get to if I needed to. That's when I realized on the other side of where I normally put my Delta 2 Max, there was a dead space, right here on this cargo shelf. So I made a wooden mount, then I used the EcoFlow bracket, and I bolted everything right to the cargo rack. The Alternator Charger is compatible with several of the EcoFlow portable power stations, including the Delta Pro, the Delta 2 Max like I use, the Delta Max 2000, the Delta 2, and then the backup batteries for the Delta 2 and the Delta 2 Max. When creating the wooden mount that goes directly to the cargo rack, I wanted to put a lip on the bottom. This is like a stopper, so when I push the Delta 2 Max all the way up against the side of the rack, it leaves enough room for airflow between the two units. Now on the back side of the Delta 2 Max, we can plug in our 12 volt for our fridge, our 110 output, our 110 input when we're charging our Delta 2 Max from shore power, and then I want to run our wires back up to the front, using zip ties to hold everything in place, just how I had it originally. Just below the cargo rack, I actually have a place where I can keep the 110 output and input cables. Having my 110 output right here is very convenient. If I need to use power outside the vehicle, I can just pull out the extension cord. Finishing up in the back, trimming zip ties, making sure everything's plugged in, and then for safety, using straps to hold the Delta 2 Max in place. Now with our install complete, let's put our alternator charger to the test. First, you're going to see the red light reflecting from my mount. This is coming from the EcoFlow itself. Now we're going to start the vehicle. As soon as it picks up a charge from the alternator, it activates and then turns on. Let's take a look at the app. We can see right up front that our voltage coming from our alternator is 14.1 volts. The app also shows us what our battery percentage is on our Delta 2 Max, and also the estimate on how long it will take until we get to 100% charge. Within about a minute, we've gone from being completely turned off to the alternator charger putting out 800 watts and charging our Delta 2 Max. Here you can see that we're actually getting about a 41 watt draw out of the Delta 2 Max to power the Land Rover's refrigerator in the back. The EcoFlow Alternator Charger has 3 specific modes, and you can control these all directly from the app. First is charge mode. That's really what we're going to be using this for a lot. This is where it uses the car battery to charge your power station. The second is reverse charge, and this is where it uses the power station's charge to recharge your car's battery. This is important for overlanding and dispersed camping if you've ever found out you had a dead battery after camping for several days. And the third is battery maintenance, where it uses the power station to charge your car battery at a low voltage to prevent battery depletion. And because the alternator charger communicates with your power station, once your power station has reached 100% charge, the alternator charger will shut itself down. I really see a piece of technology like this being used in van life, camping, RVing, overlanding, even in the contracting world for workers who may need to have off-grid power and have the ability to use their motors of the vehicle as a generator to restore the power needed for the job. What this means for me is I no longer have to carry solar panels or a gas generator or have to worry about ever being stranded somewhere when I'm off dispersed camping and overlanding. So it gives me more peace of mind to enjoy my surroundings. Thanks for watching to the end. Please like and subscribe. This is stuff we like and why we like it. If you're anything like us, we know you're gonna like it too.